Hey everybody, welcome back to another video here at HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this week we're going to take a look, and this is part 2 of our 2-part series, taking a look and listen to the Ik Multimedia's tape machine collection. There are 4 tape machine plugins in their collection. Last week we took a listen to the Tape 24 and the Tape 440. This time out we're going to take a look and listen at the Tape Machine 80 as well as a Tape Machine 99. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on these things. We're going to listen to it on a mix so you can check it out. And if you want to check out the T-Racks by Ik Multimedia's Tape Machine Suite, you can click the link in the description box below and head on over to sweetwater.com and pick it up for yourself. In full disclosure, that is an affiliate link. So if you purchase this tape machine bundle there at Sweetwater, I get a small commission, but you don't pay any more for the product, and you're helping out good old Uncle Dave here, so I thank you in advance. But before we listen to these tape machines, if you like what you see in this video, I need you to hit that subscribe button and also go out to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. I want to give you a free mixing course worth $50. It's my gift to you just for visiting HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to give you something else absolutely free. So let's jump on in here. So here we are, 2 tape machines. Very, very cool. The tape machine bundle, the 4-pack, is wonderful to have because you have every flavor sonic tape machine that you could possibly want for any style of music. They're really, really awesome. Now, these tape machine plugins are really made to kind of be on your master bus. They're pretty CPU intensive. They're not really designed to be on every single track across your mix, similar to something like the, say, Slate Digital VTM. But these things sound really great. They're wonderfully modeled plugins, and they have a lot of richness and a lot of color to them. So let's start off by talking about, we'll close the Tape 99 here for a second. Let's take a look at the Tape 80. So the first thing I want to show you with all of Ik Multimedia's plugins, you can resize them by doing this, by dragging the bottom right-hand corner. That's really cool. Great if you're on a real smaller screen and you want to fill up the screen, or if you have a small screen and you want to save some real estate, you can shrink it down. The model 80 here, this was modeled after the Studer A80 MK2 tape machine. This is engineered and manufactured in Switzerland between the years 1970 and 1988. Now, this is like a perfect blend of transparency and subtle harmonic enhancement. So this is kind of a little bit more on the transparent side, similar to the Tape 24 we looked at last time, but it has a little bit more richness to it than I was to the Tape 24. Again, there's subtle differences between these plugins, but they're really, really cool. And that's what's cool about having all 4 in one package, is you can really find the perfect sound, depending on the track that you're going for. So all their tape machine plugins are pretty much laid out the same way. Let's walk through the controls. We have a reset button here on the left-hand side, which will bring you back to your default setting. We have our input here to drive to hit the tape a little harder. Then next, underneath that, we have our input and our repro. Now, if it's on input, what that means is the audio signal is only going to go through the input and the output electronics of the tape machine. It's going to bypass all of this wonderful tape play heads and the recording heads and all of that. So you're going to have a little less color with just using the input. When it's on repro, which is what I typically leave it on, the signal's going through everything. The input, all the tape machine electronics, and the output as well. Next to that, we have our tape formula. We have the 250, the 456, the 499, and the GP9. And if we take a look, and I'll just tell you what the tape formulas are, because they are the same on all 4 of their models, which is pretty nice. So the tape formula here, let me just get out my notes here to make sure I give you the proper information. The tape 250 is the Scott's 3M tape. The 456 is an Ampec tape formula. The GP9, the 499, excuse me, 499 is the Ampex Grandmaster Gold, and the GP9 is the Grandmaster Platinum. Okay, so they all just have a little bit of a different tone to them EQ-wise. This particular tape machine has 30 IPS per second and 15 IPS per second. 15 IPS is going to slow down the tape. You're going to get a little bit more compression, a little bit more roundness on the top and the bottom end. 30 IPS is going to be a little bit more transparent. We're going to listen to them both. Don't you worry. We'll start on 15. In the center section here, we have all our bias controls, high frequency and low frequency EQ that you can play with to, again, shape the sound depending on the track. I'm going to leave it at its default settings here. And then we have true stereo here. True stereo means when it's enabled, what that means is as audio passes through a normal real deal tape machine, what happens is between the left and the right channels, you're going to have a slight variation in some of the EQ, some of the harmonic distortion, and some of the level even. Not so much that it's going to jump out at the speakers and you're going to say, wow, the left channel sounds so much louder than the right channel. It's not that obvious, but there's some subtle differences and it's constantly changing because that's what happens when you run audio through a real tape machine. When you have all these moving parts and not everything is perfectly true, if you are, you're going to have some of that slight variation, and that's what gives the tape machine some of its unique character and sound. But if you want it to be absolutely dead perfect between left and right speakers, from the EQ, the level, and the distortion characteristics, you could just turn that off. I like to leave it on. Transport modeling, this again is where you can either bypass the whole transport play heads and record heads here on the tape machine, or you can go through it by keeping it on, and by turning it off, you're just bypassing that part of the electronics. And again, I usually keep it on. And then we have our output here, so you can level match. If you're turning up the input, you could turn on the output to level match the plugin. And then they have some presets up here that you can check out as well. Okay, this track here that we have is a track where we just have some drums, bass, acoustic guitar, electric guitar. It's kind of a jazzy piano kind of a track. No vocals in this one because I want to try to, keep the copyright gods away if we can. And all I did was ran all of my raw tracks, no processing at all. This is an unmixed song. I ran it down to some buses and I threw on the T-Rax by Ik Multimedia, the British channel, just to clean up the EQ and give it a tiny bit of compression. But I kept these tracks pretty unprocessed because I want you to hear what the tape machine is doing on its own. But I tried to clean up the audio just a little bit. So here we are on the master bus with our tape 80. Let's take a listen to this. I will kind of set this up and then we'll go back and forth and we'll go through some of the feature sets. Here we go. Okay, so I'm driving the input, so we're hitting right around 0 VU. That's kind of where you want to hit the sweet spot of the plugin, and I turn down the output to level compensate for it. And just by turning it on and off, keeping it on 15 IPS on just the 250 formula, you can hear how it's subtle, but you can hear how it kind of squeezes it together and gives it a little bit more fatness, but it's not, it's more on the moderate side, which this particular tape machine is. So let's just turn it on and off here. Okay, so now I'm just going to cycle through the tape formulas, the 4 tape formulas. I'm going to keep it on 15 IPS per second so you can hear the subtle differences between these tape formulas. Here we go. Okay, so what I tend to hear on these 4 specific tape formulas is it seems to me that the 250 seems to be a little bit more crisp, a little bit more present, a little lacking on the low end. And as you go from the 250 to 456 to the 499 to the GP9, by the time you get to the GP9, that's a little bit more fat, a little bit more modern, a little bit more warm sounding to me. So it's different degrees of kind of presence and low end is what I kind of hear. So that's on 15 IPS per second. Now, if we go to 30 IPS, let's flip through the tape formulas and see what that sounds like. Okay, so when you're on 30 IPS per second, you could hear even it's more subtle. Okay, so the faster the tape is spinning, the more, or the less I should say, subtle that the effect is going to be. When you run it at 15, it's going to give it more compression. You're going to hear it a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit more of an obvious difference. So depending on the program material and what you personally like, you can really dial this in between just these two knobs, the tape formula and the tape speed. You can really kind of be less or more subtle depending on what you're going for. So now let's go ahead and let's switch between the two speeds on the same tape formula. So I'll start at 15 on the 250, then I'll go to 30, then I'll go back to 15 and switch tape formulas. 30, 15, you get the idea. So you just can hear what the same tape formula is back to back when you switch to two tape speeds. Here we go. And one last audible thing to listen for if you're new to listening to some of this stuff and you can't quite pick out the differences, you're also going to notice, and what you may want to listen for, is the transient of the snare and the kick in particular, where on 15 IPS per second, you're going to hear that there's less of a transient that kind of pokes through. It's going to be more compressed. On 30 IPS per second, it's going to sound a little bit more punchy, a little bit more transient heavy on the kick and the snare. And that's because, again, if you slow down the tape speed from 30 to 15, you're going to get a little bit more compression. It's going to round off that transient a little bit. So again, it depends on what you're kind of going for. So just keep that in mind. Now let's go to the 450. Oops. Here we go. Okay, so there's the different tape formulas at the two different speeds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it on 15 where I typically like to keep it. And I really tend to favor the GP9. It's just the sound that I kind of like. It's a little bit more modern sounding, a little bit more punchy, a little bit fatter. It's kind of what I like. And then I'm just going to kind of turn off the true stereo on and off, the transport modeling, just so you can hear those subtle differences as well. And then we'll take a look at the tape, at the next tape machine, the Tape 99. So let's go listen to that. So for me, I like the true stereo and both the transport modeling enabled because it just sounds like it's a little bit more rich to me. But again, you have to play with it. So that is the Tape 80. Let's shut that off and let's bring up the Tape 99 and let's do the same kind of thing. Again, laid out the same, but it looks a little bit different. Now the Tape 99 is based on the model, the Revox PR99, which was made by Studer in the 1980s, just so you know that. Now this tape machine is known for its very smooth frequency response with really no trace at all, they say, of a head bump or at all, or any kind of a bass bump. It's a standard tape machine for broadcasting and for classical music because it has an exceptional sonic quality. So think a little bit more hi-fi. Transparent, doesn't have a big bottom end to it when you engage it. It's more smooth. It's more, again, for that classical kind of broadcast kind of vibe. Same thing over here, the way that the controls work. The difference here is our tape speeds. We have a 7.5 and a 15. Okay, no 30 on this one. So again, when you slow it down to 7.5, you're going to get even more of a roundness to it, a little bit more fatter, if you will, than the 15 versus the 30, right? We'll start on the 7. Got our input, our bias, and our level, high frequency and low frequency controls. We have our true stereo here in our transport model, okay? Then our output. Our tape formulas are the same, okay? So we'll click through those and we'll do the same thing as we did last time. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it on, obviously, and I'm going to set up the input and the output levels, and then we'll just turn it on and off and just to see what it's kind of doing. So here we go. So it's very, very subtle. There's just a little bit of tightness going on there. The color on this thing is almost non-existent, and that's what it kind of says in the manual as well. This is not going to be something that you want to hear the effect of the tape. You just want to kind of let it do its thing in this background and let it just kind of be very, very subtle. So we're going to start on 7.5. We're going to flip through the 4 tape formulas. Let's see what we hear. Okay, now let's go to 15 IPS per second. We'll do the same thing. We'll cycle through the 4 tape formulas, starting with the 250. Okay, very, very subtle. Now we're going to go 250. We're going to go just flip back and forth between the 2 tape speeds. Here we go. So again, just a very subtle shift in the EQ. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and I should have said this at the beginning of the video, is typically you would mix, I would mix into this, meaning I would put this on on my master bus at the very beginning of the mix or very early on. And as I was EQing, compressing, and balancing all my tracks, I'd be mixing into it. So you already have some of the EQ and some of the sonic changes already in as you're mixing into it. Okay, this way we're kind of dropping it on at the end, changing some of the settings, and it's not even a fully mixed track. But I wanted to use it this way so you could really hear what this particular plugin's doing and not have it be clouded by all the other processing that's going on in the mix. So just keep that in mind. Now, last thing we'll do is we'll keep it on the GP9, we'll keep it on the 15. That's kind of my favorite setting, and I'll flip through the true stereo and the transport modeling. Okay, I kind of like them engaged, just like in the other video. It just gives a little bit more richness. Now we're going to listen to both of them back and forth. Let's listen to them both. Let's see what we have here. So we have we'll turn them both on. And again, you want to make sure these are, like I said, pretty CPU intensive. So I have two of these things engaged here. And if I look at my performance monitor, I'm already running at 55%. So each one of these tape machines takes up between 25 and 35% of my CPU. So just keep that in mind, but you should be totally fine if you're just going to use it on your master bus. Okay, here we go. So we're going to flip back and forth here. Let me resize this tape 80 a little bit, make it a little bit smaller. All right, so we'll start off, we'll put them on our 15 IPS per second. We'll keep it on the GP9 there just because that's what I tend to like. And we'll just go back and forth between the two and keep your eye on the bypass button at the top of the plug-in left-hand corner. I'll bypass this one first. We'll start on the tape 99 and then we'll go to the tape 80. Here we go. Okay, so there's the differences between the two. The tape 80 is a little bit fatter sounding. The tape 99 is a little bit more transparent sounding, but they both sound wonderful. And again, it really depends on the program material that you're using. But between just these two plugins, and then again the other two, if you go watch the other video, you have all the sonic characteristics that you would need for any style of music. You could be as subtle or as more obvious as you want. They're two really, really great plugins. And again, you can get them in a bundle, a 4-pack bundle at a very reasonable price. Again, check the description box below and check it out at Sweetwater. Really, really great. I really like the T-Rax tape machines by Ik Multimedia. They're one of my favorites. And I have lots of tape machine plugins. You've seen lots of demos on the YouTube channel. All of them are good in their own right, but these tend to be a little bit more my speed. I kind of like these. There's a few standout plugins by Ik Multimedia, and I have a lot of their plugins, and these are definitely the ones that stand out in my mind. I love their tape machines. So check them out. Go demo them for yourself. See if you like them. So I want to thank you so much for taking a look at another video here of T-Rax's, the T-Rax by Ik Multimedia, the tape machine suite. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, I want to give you another gift here. So first, I want you to go back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. If you did not do so already, get your free mixing course. It's right on the home page. Pick that up free of charge, no strings attached. Oops. And if you take that training and you want to learn more about my other training courses that I have to offer on the website, I want to give you a discount on those training courses. If you use the coupon code YouTube25 at checkout, that'll take 25% off any training course on my website. So go do that today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. And until the next video where we take a look at some more plugins, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.